Senator Birdwell, it seems like a rerun movie, but we've done this before, and we're pretty thorough in our committee hearing in the questions we asked and the answers that you provided, including DPS Director Steve McCraw. And many of the questions I was planning to ask have been asked by Senator Menendez and Senator Blanco, who did a very good job. And for the record, the intent of the legislation, I do have a couple of more because they are important to the policy that we're trying to set with Senate Bill 2. Number one, we're now providing authority all the way along the border from Brownsville to El Paso for DPS or anyone that works under the DPS on a Lone Star to be able to arrest any individual that unlawfully crosses the border with Mexico. Are we doing that in the new bill?
We afford DPS the arrest discretion based upon the situation as it is presented to them along the border. So that is 1,200 miles, you're correct. The scope and size is somewhat daunting, but that's why we give DPS the discretion as to when and where they operate listening post, observation posts along the river to deter such actions. And
under present law, right now DPS has the authority to arrest people who are charged with trespass, who have unlawfully entered the United States from Mexico. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you have a cooperative landowner that wishes to press the charges. With this law, it allows the state to press the charge without requiring, while there will still be landowners that are cooperative, those places that are state parks, other things that is state-owned land, or a landowner that may not be cooperative in wanting to press charges, it allows the state to do that.
And that area that's covered by landowners pretty much is limited to those counties that have declared an emergency declaration. Those counties right now that allow for charges on trespass, those counties are the ones that have declared a state of emergency in their counties. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes, sir, Senator.
And that area is a very small part of the border.
Say again the question, Senator.
But that area out of the border that those counties cover only is a very small part of the territory from Brownsville to El Paso.
Correct. So if an individual is detained in the interior of the state, again, as I'd mentioned, I think with Senator Menendez, for this law to be operative for that officer, they've got to be at the border to actually observe an individual coming into the country, not using a port of entry.
And I think you covered, Senator Menendez covered that very well.
Yes.
But in that, what happened with Operation Lone Star, when charges were being filed for trespass, we had so many individuals arrested that it really created a very difficult situation to a point that initially there was a lot of confusion and chaos. And the Office of Court Administration did a very good job in trying to smooth out the process.
Right.
And we had to move some of those arrestees, I know, to Hidalgo County, to one of the state jail facilities there.
That's correct, in Segovia, in your district.
So right now, we estimate we're having what, 2,000, 3,000 unlawful entries along the Texas-Mexican border?
The exact number is not known, but it is a high number. Again, that's the daunting task associated with this and why we give DPS a great amount of discretion to decide when they detain individuals, who's prosecuted, who's not, family units that get referred to federal officials, who's a threat and who's not a threat.
So we're going to have probably, would you say, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, a million?
While what is possible doesn't make it probable, what the DPS could arrest and detain and overwhelm facilities, as you're concerned with, and rightfully so, and we're concerned with it. That's why we put that discretion in the bill. The reality of that many people being arrested and placed in facilities, I don't think is a concern. There will be individuals arrested because of this, but the DPS has the discretion to determine what their capacities are for processing, and therefore those individuals that they capture that are the most dangerous, whether that's the drug mules, traffickers, whomever that they determine needs to face state prosecution, and then those that they think are best to refer to federal authorities, they can do so.
So are you saying that only those who are caught with illegal drugs will be arrested? And if you just have an unlawful entry, have a clean record, you'll be released to Border Patrol?
No, just it gives DPS the ability to make a discernment decision as to who's the most dangerous or most serious offenders that may have other things that for which they may be arrested as well, besides simply crossing into the state unlawfully.
As you well know, our county jails are overcrowded.
Correct.
The criminal justice system pretty much shut down during the pandemic. In Hidalgo County, for example, we've had to lease private jail facilities to the tune of $14–15 million to just accommodate the inmates that are in custody. So now we're going to add to that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. That seems to be very impractical, and it will be very difficult to manage. It's really going to be a very challenging situation for our counties. And those costs, as you well know, are paid by the local taxpayers, not the state.
And that's why in the bill it says that first priority is given to using an Operation Lone Star facility. And another bill that we'll have on the floor today, there's appropriation to the governor's office that allows for him to create an additional confinement facility. So I certainly appreciate your concern, Senator. It's why we've written the bill the way we have. But we trust DPS will discern correctly with the resources that they have, not just the resources of officers on the border, but the resources of confinement facility to make the best use of those facilities possible with their discretion that we've authorized them.
And your bill also has a provision for checkpoints?
Say that again?
Does your bill also have a provision for checkpoints?
Not in this bill. SB8 will have checkpoints at the traffic checkpoints at the ports of entry, at 5 ports of entry, but that's not in this bill.
And one last question, because I think you answered that to Senator Blanco and Senator Menendez. And be very clear, what happens if it's a family unit, DPS will not arrest them and incarcerate them. They'll be referred to Border Patrol.
They will make the arrest but defer to Border Patrol. They won't simply just let them pass, but they will be immediately referred to Border Patrol. Anybody that presents themselves as a family unit will go to federal authorities.
But they will not be processed through a jail facility?
Unless there's a very serious crime related to that family unit that the DPS has the ability to process. Family units are referred to federal authority.
The reason I asked that question, in Mission, where I grew up, there's a park called Anzalduas Park, where immigrants just walk across, whole families, and surrender. If DPS is there, would they be involved in trying to arrest those families or making sure that no individuals who are single crossing over?
Say again the question again, Senator.
We have a state park or a local park right next to the river called Anzalduas Park in Mission, Texas, where people just walk across because the river is very shallow. And there are usually families in large numbers, many times in the hundreds.
Right.
If DPS is there, are they going to let the Border Patrol handle those type of situations, or will be there arresting people?
If Border Patrol is there, they would let Border Patrol handle it. If Border Patrol is not there, they'll make initial detainment and refer to Border Patrol.
Okay, well, I'm not sure how that will work out when you see the large numbers of people coming across as the federal government is now bulking up their resources along the border to find ways to deport people. As I understand right now, we come across unlawful entry, which I think is a euphemism, they will deport you right away unless you come to a port of entry asking for asylum. But thank you, Senator Birdwell.
Let me clear one thing, sir. This bill does not authorize DPS any deportation authority.
And to that point, I think what the purpose of the bill, quite frankly, is to try to overturn Senate Bill 1070 out of Arizona, where the United States Supreme Court ruled that immigration authority belonged to the United States federal government, preempts state law. But thank you, Senator Birdwell, for answering my questions.
Thank you, Senator Hinojosa.